So in the last session, we asked a question like, why were Pfizer and Moderna able to have a vaccine candidate in record time?
Hmm.
And let's address that question. So instead of taking the traditional route of using a deactivated virus, what they did is they used the new mRNA technology. mRNA stands for messenger RNA. It consists of instructions for cells to produce viral proteins.
And not only viral, like the function, the regular function of
Oh,
mRNA is it basically takes all the information from your DNA, it transcribes it into a smaller segment, and then it goes to the ribosomes and it creates the proteins and it adds like each amino acid one by one and it's creating a full series of proteins. But in this case, yeah, it's going to create the viral proteins.
yes. Yeah, I was being more specific to the situation, but yeah, like she mentioned, like DNA is transcribed to RNA, which is translated to proteins, and that's how the genetic code is decoded by cells. Um, so mRNA vaccines basically provide the genetic information required to synthesize the viral proteins. So it's in a way mimicking what a virus does. mRNA vaccines. So what does a virus do once it's inside the body of a host? It has genetic information in the form of RNA,
Mhm.
and which then instructs the cell to make more of the viral proteins. But instead of having the information for the entire viral protein, this mRNA vaccine only contains the information to produce a component of the viral virus. For instance, it could be any signature protein on the surface of the virus, like the spike protein, which is you
Yeah.
probably have often heard about, or the nucleocapsid, which are different components of the virus particle. mRNA vaccines can easily be synthesized and expanded in the lab, whereas weakened viruses, they need to be propagated over a long period in labs to achieve adequate amounts, which is why it's possible to synthesize a lot of mRNA vaccines.
Also, in the case of, and I was not surprised when on the 9th of November, so Pfizer came out and announced that they have a viable vaccine candidate. At first, they said it's their vaccine is about 90% efficient, but they have also been partnering with BioNTech.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the vaccine is called Pfizer BioNTech, whatever. And BioNTech is a company, a German pharmaceutical company that's specialized in creating the platform
For
for
mRNA.
mRNA, just like Moderna did, which is another thing, right? So they already kind of had the platform for
Mm-hmm.
this, and I think companies started doing that during Zika times. So what was left was to isolate and test what specific proteins from this virus would be the most efficient, translating into mRNA form and then injecting a patient with. So yeah, that's not surprising. And then a few days later, Moderna comes out and says, "Oh wait, our vaccine is 94.5% effective." And then a few days later than that, Pfizer comes back and is like, "Oh wait,
95%.
new numbers show that ours is even better at 95." So I just want to briefly talk about what does this 94, 95, 90 mean.
Mm-hmm.
So the way they are performing the trials, and that's from the information we currently have. I would love to wait for like the peer-reviewed article where they explicitly state, how they selected the group of volunteers, how they were injecting them, and all of the details. But in general,
I would like to intercept. It's
hmm
just something interesting. So my boss was enrolled in the study, but unfortunately he was in the placebo group. Go ahead.
oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Wow, we know something in the Pfizer one?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. Aw, placebo. So, as Natasha mentioned, so there are two groups generally. There's a placebo group that's basically getting saline solution that does nothing, and there's a vaccine group. The groups are not aware of what they're getting in most trials. I
I
don't know
think it
about this
was
one.
triple blinded study where
Okay.
the administrator, like neither the patients, the volunteers don't know. So so how they decide is that they generate envelopes which contain like one of the two, either placebo or treatment, and
Mm-hmm.
then they for both the treatments they simulate the same kind of conditions. They have like a predetermined script to make sure that the patients don't know what they are getting, nor do the people, I mean, the people who are administrating the vaccine, I think in this instance also didn't know that. So you had like stuff, the vials with the envelope, I
Were the
believe.
exact same as the
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's good actually. And I read that somewhere, but I'm not sure until the paper comes out. But they were saying that the information like was only open to some statisticians inside the
Mm-hmm.
company, because they need to crunch numbers all the
Yeah.
time. But yeah, everyone else and for especially the volunteers, it's like you're getting something, and now let's say they had a total, Pfizer had a total of 43,000 people. So we divide those people into two groups. One group gets the placebo, one group gets the vaccine. And then after a period of time, so how the threshold for this study is set is we are going to stop and look at the numbers after a certain amount of people get sick.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, their first milestone was 94. So after 94 people from both the groups got sick, they stopped and they looked at the numbers. And from the 94 people, 90% of the people who got sick were in the placebo group, and 10% of the people who got sick were in the vaccine group. So that gives us the efficacy of 90%. And then the next announcement that Pfizer made, they actually tracked the data for 2 more weeks until they reached 170 cases. And they saw that from those 170, 162 were attributed to the placebo group, whereas only 8 of them were attributed to the vaccine group. And that's exactly the same way Moderna conducted its trial. They had 30,000 participants, so they had a nice even split of 15,000 placebo and 15,000 taking the vaccine.
Yeah, just so we are clear, so once they were administered either the placebo, which is a saline, or the treatment, which is the actual virus, they were allowed to go about their lives. And then the ones who were in the treatment group, like she mentioned the stats, only few people got sick um, after obviously being exposed. Sickness didn't come from the vaccine itself, just to
Yeah,
be clear.
yeah, yeah. Another thing that's not clear to me, I don't know where did you see that. So did they manually expose them to the
No, they
virus?
didn't.
Because that's not clear, right? I haven't seen anywhere that they would say that, yeah, like after 14 days we manually expose them. So they just literally, as you said, let them go about their lives.
Yes, and basically the ones who got sick, they contracted the virus just like you and I would by being
Okay.
exposed to someone else.
Yeah.
Because it's not safe for the patients of the placebo group, because I think the age group that they covered was from 18 to
Something old.
80 or something.
Yeah.
So you have
Something
like people
sensitive.
from high risk groups, so it wouldn't be safe to like manually expose them to the virus.
That's a question I got a lot on my previous video paper. Like, how did they get it? How did they get it? So we think, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna release something in a journal that says otherwise, but information right now is they just got it like you would get it
Yeah.
by just living and chilling, I guess.
Okay, so moving on to the next question segment. So mRNA technology is one thing, but there was another factor that enabled the accelerated development of the vaccine, and that is the Operation Warp Speed initiative of the federal government of the United States.
They didn't fund Pfizer though.
They did.
It
So
did?
yes,
Because
so
I read this article and they were specifically saying, oh, we got no money under war. And I'm like,
actually, the funding that Pfizer got was actually only for the development, but the distribution they are like collaborating with another
okay.
organization because they want autonomy over the
Mm.
distribution.
And I'm clarifying that because I see people already on social media being like, we trust the Pfizer vaccine because it's not backed by the government.
So if it's backed by the government, there is like a downside. So you owe certain number of vaccine doses to the
Mm.
United States government.
They
So you
bought like
like they bought
$2
about
billion
five
of the worth of
worth,
vaccine, something.
yes. So what this Operation Warp Speed initiative is that it's a federal program funded by the government for the development of six promising vaccine candidates, and Pfizer and Moderna were two of them.
Hmm.
They both received about $1 million, and Moderna received an additional $1.5 billion. That is for the distribution
Mm,
within the
okay.
US, and which Pfizer chose not to.
They
And
chose like independent
yeah,
distribution. That's gonna be interesting, by the way. That distribution at minus 94 degrees. Good luck with that.
yeah, that's another aspect we didn't touch on. So mRNA is not very stable molecule,
Mm,
and that's why you need to store it at extremely low temperatures to prolong its life. Like when I say extremely low, it's minus 94 degrees Celsius. Oh
I
wait,
think it's Celsius.
it is. Makes sense.
Yeah. If it's lower than that, then like, geez. What? And they were also saying that it's like you keep it at minus 94, whatever. Then you thaw it because you can't inject something that's at minus 94. And by the time you thaw it, until you inject it, you have like 5 minutes,
Yeah,
which is
it's
crazy.
it's unstable. On the other hand, Moderna is claiming that their vaccine candidate, although it is mRNA vaccine, it's stable at refrigeration
Yeah,
temperature.
yeah, yeah. Like the temperature you keep your beer, like -4 or something. And I'm like, that's doable, but
Yeah. But yeah, I'm very much interested in knowing how is that possible because I don't know. A lot of this information is proprietary, so it's not available to the
yeah,
public.
there was this Chinese company, Chinese logistics company, I forget the name, but they had this whole press conference because they're the ones who have been elected to from the Chinese government to
Mm,
distribute the vaccine. And long story short, they were like, we're in a shit ton of trouble.
yeah,
Because imagine a country as huge as China trying to like get this vaccine to places, and you would need to establish vaccination stations
yes,
with
which
special
have.
freezers, and
Mm-hmm.
so you can't just go to your pharmacy, you can't just go to CVS and get it, right? It's like, I don't know. Even though CVS did send me an email about it. They were like, vaccine news, you can come get it at CVS. I'm like, can I though? Where's your freezer? Are you keeping it with the Pop Tarts? Like what?
Yeah, it's -80 freezers that we have. I think might not still be enough. It
Yeah,
it needs like below that minus
yeah. It's like
90.
the next tier of
Mm,
super cool freezers.
yeah, liquid nitrogen, here you come.
Mhm.
And so yeah, so the Operation Speed Warp, because of the funding that it gave to these companies, they were able to accelerate even the clinical trials, which basically take a long time to proceed. And so everything was accelerated because of
Yeah.
that. And so a lot of people are concerned if the safety of the vaccine is compromised due to the expedited development, and we'd like to
Hmm.
address that too. Um, it's true that so far no mRNA vaccine has been approved because it's relatively a new technology. It has been in development for a while now, but there is promising results. And like any other vaccine, mRNA vaccines also need to pass through several checkpoints
Hmm.
before they can be distributed for use. It has to pass the efficacy and the safety standards in clinical trials to be considered for FDA for approval, and it is only approved for use on after it's deemed safe and at least 50% effective by the FDA officials.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to worry about. They won't approve something that's not safe.
And none of the two, at least, not Moderna nor Pfizer, have said that there have been any safety-related side effects. They're
Yeah,
pretty confident about that. They're like, no.
it's the general, like a little bit sore on your arm because it's given intramuscularly.
I mean, yeah, redness around the injection area and pain and oh my
That
God,
muscle.
what's the word I'm looking for? Swollen and like a swollen arm. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, that's fine. I'd rather have a swollen arm for an hour than have COVID, so I'm cool with that. Yeah, and there have been a lot of other candidates. Looks like everyone's coming out with a vaccine now.
Yeah, the four other candidates that the Operation Warp Speed funded were Johnson and Johnson's, AstraZeneca, Sanofi, and GlaxoSmithKline, and Novavax. So it'll be interesting. Maybe they might have something in the next month or so.
We will actually be able to have a variety.
Yeah, it was actually a big gamble by the government because they spent like billions of dollars. And imagine if we didn't even have these two candidates, all the money would have gone into nothing. Yeah, but glad it turned out well. So, a special acknowledgement to the current administration for the initiative.
Yeah. Yeah. The CEO of Pfizer is actually Greek. So
Yeah.
the Greeks are going berserk. And they're like, oh my God, I vacationed with him in like 2013 in Halkidiki, and he was really cool. I'm like, can we not? Standard Greek behavior, love them. And what else I wanted to cover? I wanted to cover something, but
Russia's Sputnik.
no, but you can talk about that.
Yeah, Russia also has a candidate, a vaccine candidate, and guess what it's called? It's called the Sputnik. And
It's just like if America had a vaccine and they named it Operation Freedom or something, like the cliche. And that has been in the news for months now, the
yeah,
Sputnik one. And
apparently Sputnik doesn't require storage at -90, but they said -20 would do, which is a slight improvement, but not so for the middle income countries. Imagine if you have to distribute this to like developing countries which
yeah,
might not have the infrastructure for this kind of distribution. So what about them?
it's also advised that you take it with a shot of vodka.
So I think India might play an important role in distributing vaccines to developing countries, other developing countries. So there's a family-owned firm. It's called the Serum Institute of India, and the owner has raised $250
Okay.
million for its vaccine candidate.
Family owned? Are
Yes.
we talking extended family or extended Indian family? Like, is it a lot of people? Because how can you raise?
Oh, it's $1 billion. They are
Okay,
worth billions.
okay.
So 250 million, I think they can afford it.
Not your average. Like my uncle has an auto repair shop business. Okay.
So the Serum Institute in India, it's actually the largest manufacturer of vaccines in the whole world by volume. And so a lot of other companies in the US are actually in talks with the Serum Institute of India for distribution to other developing countries. And it also makes possible for exports, affordable exports, which is important. And yeah, I think there was like a talk, COVAX, which is actually an initiative backed by WHO, World
Mm-hmm.
Health Organization. It's an abbreviation for COVID-19 Vaccines Global Access Facility.
And so catchy, might I
Yes.
add?
So a COVAX is an initiative which US didn't sign. So, and one of the goals of COVAX is to make the vaccines available to the middle income countries. And recently, they've announced a partnership with Bill and Melinda Gates to pay
Mhm.
the Serum Institute of India in advance to procure 200 million vaccine doses to be distributed at the cost of $3 per dose.
Okay, that's awesome.
That's reasonable. Many people have asked me, like, okay, well, you guys are getting vaccines, but what about like other countries? Like, can we afford them?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
consider the export costs and the cost of storage and distribution.
I really hope that's the final price, especially like I'd rather have us pay more
Yeah,
to kind of counterbalance that cost. Like
I
how
know.
how do people get it in developing countries? Like charge us 50, that's fine, but like you
Mm-hmm.
need to give this at a reasonable price. It's not a luxury at this
Yeah.
point. It's like basic to survival. So
Yes.
all right, that was most of the vaccine stuff. Please, please, please leave any questions you have in the comments.
Yeah, and a special shout out to Zoe. Thank you for all your comments and
Thanks,
your
Mom.
thank you for your interest in our podcast. We really appreciate the time you're taking to listen to us and giving us your feedback.
She's my manager. I'm actually paying her.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. But
I'm sure you're not.
when we get earnings, yeah,
We
she's
should
getting
think
that
about that.
cash.
Yes.
She's looking forward to it. Love you, Mom. Okay, guys, we'll see you on the next one. Till then, stay
Stay safe.
safe.